The reason why we need T and A and M as local variables is because we need to capture the information that is read in for a sport team name, the name of an athlete, the sports meets that they attended, the stipend that they got. But then on top of it, the third for loop is because how many gold medals did you get, how many silver medals did you get, and how many bronze medals did you get. So it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I personally would suggest to you for question 3, when you get this question, highlight what needs to be read in by the user and what needs to be calculated by the user. Sometimes people get a bit nervous, and what they do is they end up asking the user to please read in all of this. And come on, I mean, you can see here it says C question 5, 6, 7, 8. That means this has to be calculated by your program. So keep in mind that this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 things that your user needs to read in, okay? And so if we go to question 3, which is the user must be able to input the necessary data into the program. You can see that there are, now this is just conveniently here. Don't use the 5 there as an indication that in your semester test, if you saw 5 there, that means there's 5 things you have to read in. That's not true. It just says, look, there's 5 marks that you're going to get for inputting the information, but this includes data on each athlete. So over here, I'm going to have my for loops. My for T is equal to 1 to n teams, and then we're going to have for A is equal to 1 to n athletes, and we're going to have for M is equal to 1 to n medals. And for some of you, you might say, well, I would just go and make it 3. But if you do make it 3, then please remember that that's as a programming style, it's not the best. Okay, so here are my 3 for loops in place, and I know that I must specify the inputs in the correct for loop. So the first thing I will have to do is, let's go back here. I'm going to read in the sport team's name. After that, I will read in the name for each athlete, the number of sports and the stipend, and then the medals. Okay, so going back here, I would say sports T dot name is equal to, and because name is a string, I'm going to just go input box, what is the name of the sport team, well, whatever, and of maybe sport team. And you know, if you want to just leave it as sport team, that is fine, that is really fine. But ideally, I would like to see more of you actually make use of the index variable so that we can see that what is actually the name of, let's see, name, was it not name, it was team, sorry, team is the field, okay? The idea is to make it easier for us to read in information. So if Mr. Libya, when Mr. Libya and I are marking your semester test, we would like to know that we're entering the information currently for sport team number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. That helps us keep track, because sometimes we might be busy marking and then we have to look away, and then when we come back we go, oh no, now we've got to press the stop button and we're going to have to try all over again. So please do us a favor and actually make use of these indexes so that we can see, oh, you know, if we have to look away, we come back, we can see, oh, I see that you're asking for sport team number 6, and I am currently reading number 6's value. All right, so there's only one field for the team. The next thing we need to do is for the athletes, so sports T dot athletes, A dot name, because there's also an athlete name, input box. And remember, please do not use C string with your input box. If we see C string there, you are going to lose marks as a result. Athlete, and then here is a little bit more complicated because now you have to say athlete A in team ampersand C string. All right, and then KS Lushman's asking, can we replace the team name in place of the sports team? Well, you could do that. So KS Lushman, you're basically saying, well, now that I know what the sports team name is, I might go display T0, and then instead of saying team 1, I'm going to go put in sports T dot team. Now, yes, you can do that. If you don't want to do that, and this is the rest of the class who don't want to do this, please don't do it. You don't have to. Nobody Nobody says you have to. In fact, the reason why we don't encourage people to do it is if people get it wrong, then it crashes the program and, greater disaster instead. But however, if your program is working 100% and you really want to put the sports team name there and it works, then feel free to do so. All right. But for the athlete names, you definitely do not want to put it in. If you put in the athlete names, then you will get marks deducted because it doesn't make sense for you to put the athlete names in. All right, you can only do it for the sports team, and the reason for that is if you put in the athlete name, it will overwrite the athlete names for every single team. So for team 1, you might say A1, A2, A3, but then when it goes to team 2, now it's B1, B2, B3, and B1, B2, B3 will overwrite A1, A2, A3. And I can show you that as an example. So over here, let's go display 0, A, and then we go sports T dot athletes A dot name. All right, so let me show you why you shouldn't do this, whereas this is still okay. Right, now besides the name of the athlete, we also have to go sports T athletes, athletes. By the end of this, I totally don't want to do anything with athletes because I hate spelling athletes. Is dot, and then remember the thing is how many meets that you did, so sports meets, and sports meets is an integer value, all right, because you attend how many sports meets, so that is integer value, so I will put in cint, input box, and how many sports meets did athlete ampersand C string A ampersand 10 question mark, okay, and then afterwards you also have a stipend, so we go sports T dot athletes A dot stipend is equal to cint input box. Yeah, yes, Mr. Well, Ale Gavi, you are right. I just don't like typing athletes, maybe because I just don't do sports. How many, how much is the stipend for, and you know what? You can already guess that this Friday, the problem will not be about athletes. For athlete, ampersand C string A, and question mark. Okay, for athletes. So how much is stipend? And then finally, you want to then ask in terms of the medals, how much did they get? What was it? Is it a gold, silver, or bronze? Now, this question here, where we're using a for loop, is slightly, however, I'm just going to point out here, is slightly for me, and the reason for that is let me show you what I mean. Athletes. Yes, Ale Gavi, would you like to speak up? Please feel free.
Hi, Prof. With this particular question, will it be incorrect if you were to have a third record structure, which is specifically for the gold, because we're given the gold and the silver as well as the bronze? So if you were to iterate through each, you'd say for the gold, how many medals does the particular have in each team, and then for the silver, will that be incorrect to have it like that?
Okay. So this question was asked by one of your fellow students as well. So I'm glad you've also reached this conclusion. So my rule, typically, my rule is this. I'm going to ask you the following question. If you were to define a medal record structure, okay, one for gold, one for silver, one for bronze, inside this medal record structure, how many fields will there be inside a medal record structure?
I'd say 3.
3.
Because it's the gold, yes, it's the gold, silver, and the bronze.
Okay, but now if you describe it that way, you're not describing a medal. You're describing a collection of medals. You see what I'm getting at?
Oh, okay.
A record structure must describe one instance, and I know the word instance is a bit weird, but one actual instance of an object. So if we go back to our record structure here, you can see how many athletes does this describe? 1. How many teams does this describe? 1. So when you want to create a record structure for medal, it must describe only one type of medal. Yeah, you see what I'm getting at. Whereas if you're going to now say there's going to be 3, then we go, but it's not the same anymore, because now you're looking at gold medals and silver medals and bronze medals. So no, you shouldn't actually define it as a record structure. So that's the first thing I would point out. The second thing I would point out is that if we did define a medal record structure where you go, well, this medal record structure describes only a gold medal, then my next question to you is, how many fields do you have in this record structure? And chances are your answer will be 1, because you're only going to have 1 field to describe how many of these gold medals there are. And so if that is the case, then a record structure has to be a complex data structure. In other words, it's more than 1 field. If you have a record structure only comprising 1 field, it shouldn't need to be a record structure in the first place. Okay, all right. Then KS Lichman is it's going to ask 3 times how many gold, silver are there. The third for loop is unnecessary. Right. Okay, so the way you're thinking it is slightly different from how I'm going to implement this, but you are actually on the same track. Actually, you're full of spoilers, but it's good because it means you know what you're doing. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go medals, and I go M, and I go equal to cint input box how many medals for medal type M. C string M ampersand question mark. Okay, so that, ladies and gentlemen, is me having written all my code for inputting the information. Okay, I need another bracket at the end because I used an input box. All right. Yes, is there another person with a comment? No. Okay, RJ Zeta, please feel free to ask a question. Yes.
I want to know, would it be still okay if you didn't use a for loop, and when you asked, you prompted the user, you were specific to what kind of medal you are talking about?
Okay. Yes. I'm so glad you brought that question up. I suspect that KS Lichman is going to, basically, KS Lichman is saying the same thing. But what I want to do is I want to run this code and show you what I'm trying to get at. Okay, and I'm glad you and KS Lichman are both actually in the same mindset regarding this last question for the for loop. Okay, so if you answer it this way, with a for loop, with a medal that goes type 1, type 2, type 3, it's fine. It really is fine. We're not going to penalize. We would not have penalized students last year. Okay, but let's run this code now. What is the name of athlete 1 in team 1? And I'm going to go A1. Now, notice that when I set the name of team 1 to A, it updated team name to A there. Now, that is what KS Lichman asked, where we labeled. So after we get the team name, can we display the name of the team? Yes, we did. And then I said, as long as you only display the team name, but not the athlete's name. And I put in the athlete's name just to show you why we can't do that. So over here, I'm going to put in A1. And you see that A1 is now the athlete's name. But is that the athlete's name for all athletes in all the teams? No. Okay, how many sports meets did athlete 1 attend? I'm going to say 10. And what is the stipend? I'm going to say 100 Rand because this is a very cheap athlete. And how many medals for medal type 1? And I'm like, what's medal type 1? Okay, I'm just going to put in 1 and 2 and 3 maybe. And then it says, what is the name of athlete 2? So I go A2. You can see that A2 has replaced that column. And then how many sports meets? Let's just say this is only 1 sports meet. And this person did so well that they got 15,000 Rand. And how many medals? Well, I know it was only 1 sports meet, but they got 3 gold medals there. And they got 2 silver medals, and they got 0 bronze there. All right. Now it says, what is the name of sport team 2? And we go B, and it shows B's there. Right. But now, what is the name of athlete 1 in team 2? And I go B1. And let's see what happens. When we're putting B1, you see that B1 has replaced athlete A1. And what I'm getting at is you can put in ABC for your team names, but please do not do the same for your athlete names, which is the variable inside your record structure. All right, so I'm going to take this out because this is a no. But the other thing I want to moan about is that, well, there is the medals. And so earlier we had 2 students comment, why do we have this? Do we really want to use the for loop? And personally, I would like to ask, I mean, how many of you would prefer that the program actually asked you how many gold medals, how many silver medals, how many bronze medals? And I think many of you would agree that silver, bronze, gold, that's a lot better than medal type 1, medal type 2, medal type 3. So in that case, I would agree to deleting these 3 lines of code, technically. So I'm going to just copy this line of code here. And I'm going to copy and paste it here 3 times. I'm going to take these out instead. And over here, I'm going to use 1. I'm going to use 2. I'm going to use 3 here. And then I go, how many gold medals? Right? And how many silver medals? And then how many bronze medals? So this is more repeating on my side, but what's nice about doing it this way is that you are now actually asking the user in a much more user-friendly manner how many gold, how many silver, and how many bronze. So I'm throwing out the for loop just so that I can ask the question in a much more user-friendly manner. All right. And then Case Lishman is also commenting, doing it by specifying will also benefit the user with the questions to follow. That is true. So but for those of you who want to use the for loop, yes, sure, feel free to do so. But personally, and please note, if you did it using a for loop, you would not have lost your marks. But personally, for my part, I would prefer to do it the old-fashioned way. I don't know what Mr. Labia would have done. Mr. Labia, what would Mr. Labia do?
I usually go for the easiest thing, which is how many medals for 1, how many medals for 2, how many medals for 3. But looking at the way you put it, it does, the biggest thing is how the user is going to perceive it. So something might be easier for you to write in code, but it's not necessarily very user-friendly. So you need to make the trade-off of, even if it's longer or more lines of code, is it going to be easier for the person that's using it to actually use the code?
Right, so if we did do it that way, just pointing this out, is part of your programming practice is to make sure that you don't have weird variables lying around. Now, originally I had planned to use a for m loop, but now I don't have a m loop, so I'm going to take out that m from the way.